Admiral Kethavar had seen many impossible things in his 40 years of military service. He had watched enemy fleets appear from quantum jumps inside asteroid fields. He had seen pirates use gravity wells to slingshot around moons at impossible speeds. He had even witnessed the legendary Ghost Fleet phase through solid matter during the border wars, but nothing had prepared him for what appeared on his screens that morning. "Sir," called his sensor officer, her voice shaking. "We have a contact inside the 7th perimeter." Kethavar looked up from his daily reports. The 7th perimeter was the innermost defense layer around the Vorthak Empire's most secret military base. 7 layers of quantum shields, each one stronger than the defenses that protected their capital world. Automated defense platforms that could destroy a battleship in seconds. Sensor nets so fine they could detect a single molecule moving at unusual speeds. "That's impossible," he said, walking to the main display. "Show me." The holographic screen flickered to life. There, floating calmly inside their most secure space, was a small ship. It looked nothing like any vessel in their extensive database. The hull was gray and angular, with strange markings along its sides. Its engines glowed with a simple fusion, fire that belonged in a museum, not in the heart of their military complex. "How did it get there?" Kethavar asked. "Unknown, sir. No alarms triggered, no defense platforms fired, no shields registered a breach. It just appeared." Kethavar stared at the ship. It was barely the size of a courier vessel, maybe room for 15 beings at most. Its energy signature was so low that their sensors almost missed it entirely. Yet somehow this tiny, primitive-looking craft had done what the Empire's greatest enemies had never managed. "Are we sure it's real?" he asked. "Running full scans now, sir. It's definitely there. Metal hull, fusion reactor, basic life support systems. Everything reads as completely normal except for one thing." "What?" "It's broadcasting a message." The bridge fell silent. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no one had ever bypassed the 7 perimeters to deliver a message. Most tried to sneak through to steal secrets or plant bombs. Some came to attack. None came to talk. "Put it through," Kethavar ordered. The speakers crackled with static, then cleared. A voice spoke in perfect Vorthak, though with an accent no one recognized. "This is Captain Jin of the Earth vessel Determination. We come seeking diplomatic contact with the Vorthak Empire. We mean no harm and request permission to dock." The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Earth was not in any of their star charts. The ship's design matched nothing in their military databases. The voice sounded calm, almost friendly, as if floating inside their most secure military base was the most natural thing in the world. "Sir," the communications officer whispered, "what should we tell them?" Kethavar studied the small ship on his screen. Standard procedure was clear. Any unauthorized vessel in secured space was to be destroyed immediately. No questions, no warnings, no second chances. The Empire's security depended on it. But something made him pause. Maybe it was the calm tone of the voice. Maybe it was the fact that this ship had achieved the impossible without firing a shot or raising an alarm. Maybe it was simple curiosity about how they had done it. "Open a channel," he said finally. "Captain Jin," he began, his voice formal and commanding. "You are in violation of Imperial space. Explain how you bypassed our defenses." There was a pause, then the voice came back, sounding almost amused. "We didn't bypass anything, Admiral. We simply found the rhythm your defenses follow and moved with it. Like dancing with a partner instead of fighting them." The sensor officer ran new scans on the ship. "Sir, their energy output is fluctuating in patterns that match our shield frequencies. It's like they're harmonizing with our defenses." Kethavar frowned. That should be impossible. The shield frequencies changed randomly every few seconds using algorithms that took the Empire's best computers hours to predict. How could a primitive ship with basic computers match them in real time? "Captain Jin," he said, "state your intentions." "We wish to establish friendly relations between our peoples. We have information about a threat that concerns both our species. May we speak with your diplomatic representatives?" A threat? Kethavar felt a chill run down his spine. What could a species with such primitive technology know about threats that the Empire's vast intelligence network had missed? Stand by, he told them, then turned to his communications officer. Contact Fleet Command. Tell them we have a first contact situation requiring immediate attention. What about the ship, sir? Kethavar looked at the small vessel again. It floated there peacefully, making no aggressive moves, running no deep scans, showing no signs of hostility. Its crew had somehow achieved what thousands of enemy ships had failed to do, yet they asked for permission to dock like polite visitors. Maintain watch protocols, he decided. No aggressive actions unless they make hostile moves first. While they waited for orders from Fleet Command, Kethavar couldn't stop staring at the human ship. His tactical mind ran through dozens of scenarios. Maybe it was a trap. Maybe the ship was somehow bigger inside than outside. Maybe they had weapons that didn't show up on scans. But the longer he watched, the more he believed these humans were exactly what they claimed to be. Visitors who had somehow solved a puzzle that the Empire's greatest minds thought was unsolvable. His second-in-command approached quietly. Sir, Fleet Command is sending Ambassador Veltar to handle first contact protocols. ETA 6 hours. 6 hours to wonder how a small ship with primitive technology had made their greatest defenses useless. 6 hours to think about what other impossible things these humans might be capable of. As Kethavar watched the human ship drift peacefully in space, he realized that everything he thought he knew about military strategy and defensive technology might be wrong. These humans had not broken their defenses or overpowered them or tricked them. They had simply found a way to make the defenses irrelevant. That, he thought, might be the most dangerous ability of all. Fleet Commander Rathek arrived 3 hours ahead of schedule, his flagship dropping out of quantum jump with enough energy discharge to light up every sensor on the base. He was known throughout the Empire for his tactical brilliance and his complete lack of patience for mysteries. Admiral, he said as soon as he materialized on the bridge, explain to me how a primitive vessel bypassed 7 layers of our most advanced defenses. Kethavar brought up the sensor data on the main screen. We're still trying to understand it ourselves, Commander. Watch this. The display showed the human ship's energy patterns over the past 6 hours. Instead of maintaining steady output like normal vessels, the ship's energy fluctuated in complex waves that seemed to match every change in the defensive grid around them. It's like they're reading our shield harmonics in real time, Kethavar explained, but their computers aren't advanced enough for that kind of calculation. Rathek studied the patterns with growing concern. Show me their weapon signatures. That's the strange part, sir. They have no visible weapons. Basic hull plating, standard fusion drives, primitive sensors. Nothing that should pose any threat. Nothing we can detect, Rathek corrected grimly. A species advanced enough to defeat our defenses must have weapons we can't identify. As if responding to their conversation, the human ship broadcast another message. Admiral Kethavar, this is Captain Jin. We understand your caution, but we assure you we carry no weapons. Our ship is purely for exploration and diplomacy. We have crew members who would be happy to demonstrate our technology if it would help build trust. Rathek raised an eyebrow. They're listening to our communications? Negative, sir. All channels are encrypted and secure. The fleet commander's expression darkened. If these humans could monitor their private conversations through military encryption, they were far more dangerous than they appeared. Captain Jin's voice came through the speakers again. We apologize if we seem to be responding to your private discussions. We're not intercepting your communications. It's just that your questions are the logical ones we would ask in your position. We're prepared to answer them. This time even Kethavar looked disturbed. Either the humans had impossible surveillance technology, or they could predict Vorthak thinking patterns with unsettling accuracy. When Ambassador Veltar finally arrived, he brought with him a full diplomatic escort and enough firepower to level a small moon. He was prepared for anything except what he actually found. You mean to tell me, he said as he reviewed the situation, that 12 beings in a ship barely larger than a shuttle have made our entire defensive strategy obsolete? That appears to be the case, Ambassador, Rathek replied stiffly. Veltar stared at the human vessel through the observation port. It looked so ordinary, so harmless. Very well. Prepare docking bay 7 for first contact protocols. Full security detail, isolation fields and recording equipment. Sir, Kethavar interrupted. They're requesting to dock with their own ship intact. Standard protocol is to bring them aboard in our transport pods. What's their reasoning? Captain Jin's voice answered before anyone could respond. Ambassador Veltar, we understand your security concerns. However, our ship's life support is calibrated for human biology. We'd prefer to dock normally and meet in a neutral airlock area if possible. Veltar felt a chill. Once again, the humans had responded to private conversations as if they were part of the discussion. Captain Jin, he said formally, I am Ambassador Veltar of the Vorthak Empire. Please explain how you are monitoring our secure communications. We're not monitoring anything, Ambassador. We're simply anticipating logical questions and concerns. Your security protocols are visible from your ship movements and energy patterns. Your caution is understandable and wise. 2 hours later, Veltar stood in docking bay 7 as the human ship approached. It moved unlike any vessel he had ever seen, flowing smoothly through space as if the laws of physics were suggestions rather than rules. When it touched down, it did so with barely a whisper of contact. The airlock opened and the first human stepped out. Captain Jin was tall and lean, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. He wore a simple uniform that looked comfortable rather than impressive. Behind him came his crew, Navigator. So, a small woman with quick movements and alert expressions, Engineer Tay, a stocky man whose hands were stained with what looked like honest work, and Communications Officer Mi, young but carrying herself with quiet confidence. Ambassador, Captain Jin said with a slight bow, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Veltar had expected many things. Advanced technology, strange biology, incomprehensible culture. He had not expected the humans to look so similar to his own people or to seem so normal. Captain Jin, he replied formally, welcome to Outpost Cathera. I must ask again how your vessel bypassed our defenses. Jin smiled. Would you like us to show you? Engineer Tay can explain our navigation system. Tay stepped forward, pulling out a device that looked like a child's toy compared to Vorthak technology. This is our harmonic reader, he said in accented but clear Vorthak. It doesn't break through your shields. It listens to them. Listens? Veltar asked. Everything in space has a rhythm, Navigator so explained. Stars pulse, planets rotate, artificial systems cycle through patterns. We learn to hear these rhythms and move with them instead of against them. Communications Officer Mi activated a small holographic display. Your defenses are like a song with 7 different melodies playing at once. Most ships try to push through by force, which creates discord. We simply learn to sing along. Veltar stared at the simple explanation. That's impossible. Our defense patterns are generated by quantum algorithms that change randomly. Random to you, Jin said gently, but not truly random. Everything follows patterns if you know how to look for them. We spent 3 months listening to your outer defenses before we understood the rhythm well enough to attempt approach. 3 months? Fleet Commander Rathek, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. Our long-range sensors detected no ships in this sector. Engineer Tay grinned. That's because we weren't trying to hide from your sensors. We were hiding in plain sight, disguised as background radiation and space debris. Sometimes the best camouflage is to become part of the environment. As the humans explained their technology and methods, Veltar began to understand something that shook him to his core. These beings hadn't defeated the Empire's defenses through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had done it by thinking about the problem in a completely different way. Where the Vorthak saw barriers to overcome, humans saw puzzles to solve. Where the Empire built stronger walls, humans found better doors. Where Vorthak technology focused on power and complexity, human technology emphasized adaptation and efficiency. Captain Jin, Veltar said slowly, why have you come here? What do you want from the Empire? Jin's expression grew serious. Ambassador, we need to talk about something we've discovered. Something that threatens not just our species, but every intelligent life in this galaxy. The diplomatic meeting that was supposed to last 1 hour stretched into 6. By the end, Veltar realized that first contact with humanity would change everything the Empire thought it knew about survival in a dangerous galaxy. Chief Science Advisor Morden had built his reputation on understanding impossible technologies. He had reverse-engineered ancient artifacts, decoded quantum computers, and solved energy equations that had puzzled the Empire's greatest minds for centuries. But as he stood in the human ship's engineering section, He felt like a student again. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, studying the ship's power systems. "Your fusion reactor is producing twice the energy our calculations say it should." Dr. Ye, the human science officer, smiled patiently. She was older than the others, with gray streaks in her hair and hands that moved with the confidence of long experience. "That's because you're calculating efficiency based on fighting the reaction instead of guiding it." "Explain," Morden said, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. Dr. Ye led him to a simple control panel. "Your fusion reactors force hydrogen atoms together using massive amounts of energy. You overpower the natural resistance and create the reaction through brute force. That's how fusion works," Morden replied. "You must overcome the electromagnetic repulsion between nuclei." "That's one way," Dr. Ye agreed. "But we found another. Watch." She activated a display showing the reactor's internal processes. Instead of the violent, controlled explosions Morden expected, he saw something that looked almost like a dance. The hydrogen atoms moved in flowing patterns, coming together naturally at precisely the right moments. "We don't force the reaction," Dr. Ye explained. "We create conditions where the atoms want to fuse. It requires much less energy and produces much more output." Engineer Wu joined them, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Same principle applies to our hull design. Your ships are built to resist everything. Energy weapons, radiation, debris impacts. Our hull adapts instead." Morden ran his scanner over the ship's interior walls. The readings made no sense. "Your hull material is changing its molecular structure in real time." "Exactly," Wu said proudly. "When energy hits it, the material shifts to absorb and redirect instead of simply blocking. When radiation passes through, the hull becomes temporarily transparent to that frequency. When debris impacts, the surface becomes elastic to absorb the impact. But how do you control molecular changes so precisely with such simple computers?" Dr. Ye and Engineer Wu exchanged a look that Morden was beginning to recognize. It was the expression humans wore when they were about to explain something that would challenge everything he thought he knew. "We don't control it," Dr. Ye said. "We program the material to respond appropriately to different situations, then let it make its own decisions." "Materials can't make decisions," Morden protested. Engineer Wu led him to another section of the ship. "This is our navigation computer. By your standards, it's barely powerful enough to calculate orbital mechanics." Morden examined the device. It was indeed primitive by Empire standards, with processing power that wouldn't qualify for use in a personal entertainment system. Yet somehow, Wu continued, Pilot Bo uses it to navigate space in ways your most advanced systems can't match. As if summoned by his name, Pilot Bo appeared from the ship's bridge. He was young and energetic, with the kind of easy confidence that came from mastering something difficult. "Want to see how it works?" Bo asked cheerfully. Morden nodded, though he was beginning to suspect he wouldn't like the answer. Bo sat at his control station and activated the navigation display. Instead of the complex three-dimensional charts Morden expected, the screen showed something that looked like abstract art, flowing lines and shifting patterns that seemed to move with their own rhythm. "This is how we see space," Bo explained. "Not as empty void with objects in it, but as a living system with currents and flows. Gravity wells, magnetic fields, radiation patterns, quantum fluctuations. They all create streams we can ride instead of obstacles we have to overcome. But the mathematics are mostly intuitive," Bo finished. "Our computer handles basic calculations, but navigation is really about feeling the patterns and moving with them instead of against them." Morden stared at the display. "You're telling me you navigate by feeling?" "By understanding," Dr. Ye corrected gently. "We've learned that the universe has its own logic. Fighting that logic requires enormous energy and often fails anyway. Working with it requires much less energy and usually succeeds." Fleet Commander Rathek, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. "This philosophy extends to your military capabilities as well?" Communications Officer Da, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We don't really have military capabilities in the way you mean. We have survival capabilities, the difference being..." Captain Jin joined the group, having finished his meetings with Ambassador Veltar. "We learned early that we couldn't outbuild or outgun the dangers we faced. We had to outthink them. Show them the combat simulations," Dr. Ye suggested. Jin nodded to Pilot Bo, who switched the display to show recorded exercises. Morden watched in fascination as human ships engaged in practice battles against simulated enemies. Instead of the massive energy exchanges he expected, he saw something that looked more like a complicated dance. "We don't try to destroy enemies faster than they can destroy us," Jin explained. "We make them defeat themselves by using their strength against them." The simulation showed a small human ship facing a much larger opponent. Instead of engaging directly, the human ship led the enemy into an asteroid field, using the larger ship's momentum and firepower to destroy the asteroids in a chain reaction that disabled the attacker. "Elegant," Rathek admitted grudgingly. "But what happens when you face an enemy that can't be tricked?" "Then we find a different approach," said Security Chief Yoon, who had been listening from the doorway. "Every enemy has weaknesses. Every system has flaws. Every strategy has limitations. Our job is to find them and exploit them." "And if there are no weaknesses?" Morden asked. Engineer Tay smiled. "Then we create some." As the day wore on, Morden realized that everything he had learned about the humans was forcing him to reconsider everything he thought he knew about technology, strategy, and problem-solving. The Empire had spent millennia building bigger, stronger, more complex solutions to every challenge they faced. Humans had spent their history learning to do more with less, to find simple solutions to complex problems, and to work with natural forces instead of against them. When Admiral Kethvar arrived for the evening briefing, Morden was ready with his preliminary report. "Sir," he began, "I don't think we're dealing with a technologically primitive species. I think we're dealing with a species that has evolved beyond the need for technological complexity." "Explain." "They've learned to solve problems at the fundamental level instead of overpowering them. Their primitive technology is actually more sophisticated than ours because it works with natural laws instead of brute forcing through them." Kethvar considered this. "And the implications for our defense strategies?" Morden looked out at the human ship, still floating peacefully in their most secure space. "Sir, I think these humans could teach us things about survival that we never imagined. But first, we need to understand what threat brought them all the way across the galaxy to find us. The answer to that question, he suspected, would change everything the Empire thought it knew about their place in the galaxy. The war room fell silent as Captain Jin activated the holographic display. What appeared in the center of the room made every Vorthak officer present take an involuntary step backward. It was a ship, but calling it a ship was like calling a hurricane a breeze. The vessel stretched for hundreds of kilometers, its surface covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow, even in the static image. Strange protrusions extended from its hull like mechanical tentacles, each one larger than a Vorthak battleship. "This," Captain Jin said quietly, "is what our long-range sensors detected moving toward this galaxy." Admiral Kethvar found his voice first. "How far away?" "Based on its current speed, approximately 18 months until it reaches the outer systems," replied data analyst Rai, one of the human crew members Jin had not introduced before. She was young but spoke with the authority of someone who had spent years studying this threat. Fleet Commander Rathek leaned forward. "One ship? Certainly formidable, but the combined fleets of the Empire—" "It's not alone," interrupted strategist Hin, another human officer. "Our deep space monitors have identified at least 12 similar vessels, possibly more." Ambassador Veltar felt his blood run cold. 12 ships of that size could devastate entire systems. Captain Jin's expression grew even more serious. "Ambassador, I need you to understand something. These aren't just ships. They're mobile factories, research stations, and weapons platforms all combined into one entity. Worse, they learn and adapt from every encounter." Dr. Ye stepped forward with a data pad in her hands. "We call them the Devourers. They appear in galactic records going back over 200,000 years, but only as myths and legends. Every advanced civilization eventually faces them." "Where do they come from?" asked Chief Science Advisor Morden. "Unknown," Dr. Ye replied. "What we do know is that they follow a pattern. They arrive, study the dominant civilizations, then systematically destroy them while incorporating their technology and strategies into their own capabilities." Strategist Hin activated another display. "We've analyzed historical records from 17 different extinct civilizations. The pattern is always the same. The Devourers arrive with seemingly primitive technology. They engage in small skirmishes, Lose deliberately, then disappear for several years, Maynard. Why? Rathek asked. To study their opponents, Captain Jin explained. During those years, they analyze every weapon used against them, every tactic employed, every defensive strategy. When they return, they've adapted countermeasures for everything they faced. Data analyst Ree brought up a series of tactical simulations. The Korthani Empire had weapons that could destroy planets. The Devourers learned to build ships that were immune to those weapons. The Zilarian Federation developed quantum shields that were supposedly impenetrable. The Devourers found ways to phase through them as if they weren't there. Each civilization fought them with their greatest strengths. Hin continued. Each civilization was defeated by having those strengths turned against them. Admiral Kethvar studied the tactical data with growing unease. How do you know all this? Dr. Ye looked uncomfortable. Because humanity has faced them before. The room erupted in surprised voices. Ambassador Veltar raised his hand for silence. Explain. Captain Jin took a deep breath. 300 years ago, they came to our solar system. Earth had just achieved interstellar flight. Our technology was primitive by galactic standards. Our military consisted of small patrol ships, and our total population was less than 20 billion. What happened? Morden asked, though he suspected he already knew. We lost, Jin said simply. They destroyed our outer colonies, crippled our space fleet, and began their standard analysis process. According to their historical pattern, they should have returned within 5 years to finish the job. But they didn't, Rathek observed. No, they didn't. And we think we know why. Strategist Hun activated a new display showing Earth's solar system. During the 5-year analysis period, humanity did something unprecedented. Instead of rebuilding the same technology stronger and better, we completely changed our approach to everything. We threw out our entire military doctrine, Captain Jin continued. We abandoned our centralized command structure. We stopped building big, obvious targets and started building small, adaptable units. Most importantly, we stopped trying to fight them the way we thought we should fight them. Dr. Ye pulled up more data. When the Devourers returned, they found a completely different enemy. Every strategy they had learned was useless because we weren't using those strategies anymore. We had become unpredictable, data analyst Ree added. And the one thing the Devourers can't adapt to is true unpredictability. Communications Officer Da, who had been quietly monitoring long-range sensors, suddenly spoke up. Captain, I'm detecting quantum wake signatures at the edge of this system. The room fell silent. Jin's face went pale. How many? 3 ships, sir. They match the profile signatures we've been tracking. Admiral Kethavar felt ice in his veins. They're here. Not here yet, Da corrected. But close. Maybe 6 months out and approaching slowly. Ambassador Veltar turned to Captain Jin. Why did you come to us? Why risk revealing your survival to seek us out? Jin met his gaze steadily. Because humanity learned something during our encounter with the Devourers. We learned that survival isn't about being strong enough to win. It's about being adaptable enough to keep changing until you find a solution that works. And you think the Empire can change? Rathek asked. I think the Empire has something we don't have, replied strategist Hin. Resources, infrastructure, and manufacturing capability. We have adaptability and unpredictability. Separately, neither of us can defeat the Devourers. Together, we might have a chance. Security Chief Yoon, who had been studying the Devourer ship specifications, looked up. There's something else. The reason they're taking so long to approach this time. What do you mean? Morden asked. Look at their movement pattern. They're not coming straight in like they did with other civilizations. They're taking a cautious, circuitous route. Captain Jin nodded grimly. They remember us. They know we're here somewhere and they're afraid. Afraid? Veltar couldn't hide his skepticism. These machines that have destroyed countless civilizations are afraid of one small species. They're afraid of what they don't understand, Dr. Ye explained. For 200,000 years, they've faced enemies they could predict and counter. We're the first species they've encountered that they couldn't analyze and defeat according to their standard methods. Data analyst Rai brought up one final display. This is why we came to you. The Devourers are adapting their approach because of us. Instead of their usual tactics, they're likely to try something completely new. We need allies who can match that adaptability. Admiral Kethavar looked around the room at his officers, then at the humans who had brought this warning across the galaxy. What are you proposing? Captain Jin stepped forward. An alliance unlike any in galactic history. Not a traditional military partnership, but a complete integration of our approaches to warfare, technology, and strategy. You want us to abandon our military doctrine and adopt yours? Rathek asked. No, Jin replied. We want to create something entirely new. Something the Devourers have never seen before and can't predict. A hybrid approach that combines your strength with our adaptability. Ambassador Veltar considered the implications. The Empire had never formed an equal partnership with any species. But then again, the Empire had never faced a threat that had already destroyed every other major civilization in galactic history. Time is running short, Communications Officer Da reported. Long-range scans confirm the Devourers are accelerating. Revised estimate, 4 months until they reach the outer systems. 4 months to forge an alliance, revolutionize their military strategy, and prepare for an enemy that had never been defeated. As impossible as it seemed, Veltar realized it might be their only hope. Fleet Admiral Zorthek arrived at Outpost Cathara expecting to dictate terms to a primitive species that had somehow stumbled into advanced technology. He brought with him the full military council of the Empire, enough firepower to level continents, and the absolute authority to make decisions for the Vorthak people. What he found instead challenged everything he believed about military superiority. You want me to what? He demanded, staring at the joint tactical display that Captain Jin and Admiral Kethvar had prepared. Abandon traditional fleet formations, Captain Jin repeated calmly. Stop building defensive positions. Eliminate centralized command structures. That's military suicide, Zorthek replied flatly. Tactical Officer Bin, one of the humans who had been working closely with Vorthak strategists, stepped forward. With respect, Fleet Admiral, traditional military doctrine is exactly what the Devourers expect and can counter. We've run simulations, added Strategic Advisor Ho, a human woman whose quiet intelligence had impressed even the Empire's War Council. Every conventional strategy results in defeat within 72 hours of first contact. Fleet Admiral Zorthek turned to his own tactical staff. Is this accurate? Chief Military Strategist Kolron nodded reluctantly. Unfortunately, yes. The Devourers' historical pattern shows they can adapt to any linear strategy within hours of encountering it. Then what do you propose? Zorthek asked, his voice tight with controlled frustration. Engineer Q activated a new holographic display. We propose something that has never been tried in galactic history. A completely fluid, non-hierarchical defense network. The display showed hundreds of small ships moving in seemingly random patterns throughout the system. Instead of battle lines or defensive formations, the vessels flowed like schools of fish, constantly changing direction and purpose. Each ship operates independently, Captain Jin explained, but remains connected to the whole through rapid communication networks. No central command that can be targeted or compromised. No predictable patterns that can be analyzed and countered. Security Chief Yoon brought up tactical simulations. When the Devourers attack one group, the others adapt instantly. When they develop a counter to one strategy, we switch to something completely different before they can implement it. And how? Demanded Fleet Admiral Zorthek. Do you coordinate hundreds of independent units without centralized command? Dr. Yes smiled. The same way flocks of birds coordinate their movements or schools of fish avoid predators. Simple rules that create complex, unpredictable behavior. Each ship follows basic guidelines, Strategic Advisor Ho continued. Stay connected to your neighbors, avoid isolation, adapt to threats, maintain mission focus. No complex strategies to be predicted or countered. Engineer Wu activated another display showing ship modifications. We've also redesigned the vessels themselves. Your ships are built like fortresses. Strong, well-armed, designed to win direct confrontations. Our modified designs are built like dancers, fast, flexible, designed to avoid confrontations entirely. You're describing a retreat strategy, Zorthek said dismissively. We're describing a survival strategy, Captain Jin corrected. The goal isn't to destroy the Devourers in glorious battle. The goal is to make them waste resources, become frustrated, and eventually leave. Pilot Bo, who had been working with Vorthak navigation specialists, demonstrated the new movement protocols. Instead of predictable patrol routes, ships follow environmental cues. Solar wind patterns, gravitational fluctuations, even quantum field variations. The movement looks random to outside observers but follows natural rhythms that can't be artificially replicated or predicted. Admiral Kethvar, who had spent weeks working with the humans, added his perspective. Fleet Admiral, I've seen their simulations work against our best tactical computers. When we use traditional strategies, we lose every time. When we adopt their approach, the results are unprecedented. Show me, Zorthek ordered. The next 6 hours changed everything the Empire thought it knew about warfare. In simulation after simulation, traditional Vorthak fleets were systematically destroyed by devourer tactics. But the new hybrid approach, combining Vorthak technology with human adaptability, produced results that bordered on miraculous. In this scenario, data analyst Ree explained, the devourers attempt to destroy our main fleet. But there is no main fleet. Each ship they attack dissolves into smaller units that reform elsewhere. Here, continued strategist Hin, they try to capture and analyze our technology. But every ship has been programmed to self-modify in real time. By the time they understand one configuration, it has changed into something completely different. Communications Officer Da brought up the most impressive simulation. In this test, they attempt to predict our response patterns by studying our previous engagements. But since every engagement uses different tactics, there are no patterns to analyze. Fleet Admiral Zorthek watched simulation after simulation end with the same result. Frustrated devourers withdrawing from systems they couldn't understand or predict. This is all theoretical, he pointed out. Not entirely, Captain Jin replied. We've been testing components of this strategy against devourer scout ships for the past 2 months. What? Zorthek's composure finally cracked. Engineer Tay activated a recording system. 3 devourer scouts entered this system last week. They encountered a joint human Vorthak patrol unit operating under the new protocols. The recording showed something that no military officer in the Empire had ever seen. Devourer ships retreating from a much smaller force, their behavior patterns indicating confusion and frustration. They tried to analyze our tactics, Security Chief Yoon narrated, but couldn't find any consistent strategy to counter. After 6 hours of engagement, they withdrew to the outer system. Where they remain, Communications Officer Mi added, apparently trying to understand what they encountered. Ambassador Veltar, who had been quietly observing the presentations, finally spoke. Captain Jin, what you're proposing would require a complete transformation of the Empire's military structure. The political implications alone are less important than survival, Jin replied firmly. Ambassador, the Devourers will arrive in full force within 3 months. We can spend that time arguing about political structures, or we can spend it preparing something they've never faced before. Dr. Ye brought up the final presentation. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require the Empire to abandon its strengths. Vorthak technology, manufacturing capability, and logistics networks are all essential components. We're not asking you to become us. We're asking you to become something new. Strategic Advisor Ho nodded, something that combines the best of both approaches. Vorthak strength and human adaptability, imperial resources and human creativity, traditional knowledge and innovative thinking. Fleet Admiral Zorthek looked around the room at his advisors, then at the humans who had traveled across the galaxy to offer this alliance. The logical part of his mind screamed that this was insane, that military doctrine existed for good reasons, that abandoning proven strategies was suicide. But the practical part of his mind couldn't argue with the simulation results. Traditional strategies had a 0% success rate against the Devourers. This new approach, impossible as it seemed, offered real hope. What do you need from us? He asked finally. Captain Jin's relief was visible. Full integration of our crews and technologies. Joint training programs. Most importantly, the willingness to trust in approaches that seem impossible. How long do we have? Communications Officer Da checked her sensors. Devourer main fleet will reach the outer system perimeter in 11 weeks. 4 days. 11 weeks to revolutionize galactic defense, forge an unprecedented alliance between species, and prepare for an enemy that had never been defeated. As the first joint human Vorthak vessels prepared for launch, Admiral Kethvar watched from the observation deck. The ships moved unlike anything in Imperial history, flowing through space with an organic grace that somehow made them seem alive. Do you think it will work? Engineer Wu asked, joining him at the viewport. Kethvar considered the question. 3 months ago, he would have said that bypassing the 7 perimeters was impossible. A week ago, he would have said that fighting the Devourers was hopeless, I think, he said slowly. That we're about to discover what happens when an enemy that has learned to predict everything faces a species that treats impossible as just another word for not yet figured out. In the depths of space, the Devourer fleet continued its approach, their ancient algorithms analyzing every signal, every transmission, every hint of the civilization they planned to study and destroy. What they could not analyze was the possibility that this time, their opponents might not fight back in any way they could understand. The galaxy was about to learn whether adaptability could triumph over inevitability, whether cooperation could defeat conquest, and whether the human refusal to accept defeat could succeed where countless other civilizations had failed. In 11 weeks, they would have their answer.